Hi, I'm Liz, CEO and founder of Worth It, creator of the Wellbeing Ambassadors Programme, which is an early intervention, peer-led wellbeing initiative that trains young people in how to use coaching skills and positive psychology techniques to prevent the onset of mental health problems in other young people. So it's really early intervention where what we're doing is we're leveraging well-being and relationships as protective factors that support young people to feel that they belong at school and they can learn positive coping strategies from peers. So it's really early intervention. So what I want to talk to you about today, seeing as we're coming up to the start of the academic year, is the timeline for running a Wellbeing Ambassadors Programme in your school. This is something we quite often get asked about, and I have lots of chats with people who are interested in the programme, so I thought I would put it into a video. So the Wellbeing Ambassadors Programme that we run at Worth It is a online train the trainer program. Now you can have me or one of the team come into your school and facilitate the workshop with the students, and then you get access to our online program, or you can use our train the trainer program and learn how to do it yourself, or both. Well, the program does do both, but most of the schools that we work with use our online train the trainer program because quite often the senior mental health lead or the school counsellor or a teacher that teaches PSHE or a relevant topic is quite often the best person to facilitate the training once they have the manual and the online training and all the materials that go with it. So what happens when you join the Wellbeing Ambassadors Programme is it's a licensed programme where you get access to an online portal, if you like, where you can download the resources yourself to run the workshop with the students and complete our short online training course, which is about 2.5 hours long, and you get an extensive trainer manual which is 40 pages long, around 40 pages, which explains every single activity and tool and resource and how to facilitate that to your pupils. You get access to that for 3 years. You get access for 2 people for 3 years, and if somebody leaves or gets pregnant or swaps roles, you can easily swap out the facilitator and they get access from the start within the timeline of the 3 years. So if you start the program on the 1st of September, you get access for 3 years, and then somebody joins at Christmas, they just then have access from Christmas to then the 1st of September in 3 years time. So the additional facilitators get added on within that 3-year period. So usually the questions I get asked are, when's a good time to start the program, and what does the rollout of it look like? So when we tend to have 2 main busy periods, well 3. The main busy periods are start of the academic year and July and June, and sometimes around after Christmas, January, February time, because it can take the whole of sort of autumn term for schools to prepare to start the program and start thinking about whether the program's right for them and in their school, and plan the budget and that sort of stuff. So that they might start in the new year, like new annual year 2026, because I'm at the start of right now it's August 2025 as I'm recording this, but this is relevant for any academic year. So what we tend to recommend, or what we tend to find happens, is schools will sign up for the program, and the member of staff or staff, there's 2 facilitators that are allowed per license for the school, they will get access to the program sort of early September when schools go back, and they'll get their head around everything they need to do. The online training is 2.5 hours, so you only really need a commitment of about 3 hours to get your head around all the content required to deliver the workshop to the students. The workshop itself, so the program is designed to be a full school day of workshop. So you're learning how to deliver the workshop to your students, and then you can either decide, I'm going to take them off timetable and do it as a school day, around 5 hours of content, and then, or am I going to split it into a workshop after school or lunchtime, or over a number of weeks? You can do it like that, but we tend to recommend and advise schools that they take students off timetable and they do the workshop intensively in one day. So the idea is, with the Wellbeing Ambassadors Programme, that you are facilitating a range of coaching based activities that elicit pupil voice, that let young people understand the role of positive relationships and how they're really essential for well-being, creating a culture of belonging which protects against the onset of mental health problems, and how positive relationships during adolescence are key for well-being, and how they become well-being role models and can really sort of lead and champion that approach to building belonging and positive relationships and connections with peers, whether those peers be younger or older or the same age as them. So then they also learn a range of positive psychology based wellbeing tools, mainly around coping and stress, how to understand different coping strategies and share those with peers through this positive relationship that includes active listening and being supportive and signposting. We also cover things like safeguarding, being responsible and having different boundaries, because wellbeing ambassadors are not mini therapists going around school trying to cure everyone's issues. They are really, what's coming to mind is the canaries in the coal mine. They are the ones that are taking the temperature of your school environment and hearing what from other pupils, or being the voice of other pupils, that really let senior leadership and let staff know what really are the barriers that are preventing young people in your school having good mental health. And then through coming up with action plans and coaching your wellbeing ambassadors around like what we're going to do about that, and setting plans and actions, that those students then take wellbeing initiatives forward. And that does look different in every school. So let's go back to the timeline. So the timeline, so say you get access to the program first couple of weeks of September, you would learn the content, you would do the first few modules which are around like who the right ambassadors are and what the program is about and the theory behind it and why it all works. I mean, that is not very long, that's about half an hour. And then you can think about who are the students that you want to recruit, or have you got some already in mind? Usually that first academic year, it might be students that you already have in mind, that might be your prefects, or they might be student council, or they might be already having an active role in pupil voice within your school, or you might want to do your own recruitment process and start from scratch and really like select some students that are not always the ones that go forward for everything, and can give you a different insight and different voice. Maybe they've had a few struggles themselves, or they know people that have, or mental health and well-being are really important priority for them and they want to help their peers, or they might want to have a job related to that when they leave school, or they might want to develop some interpersonal skills, or they might be involved in cadets, or they might be involved in lots of different leadership activities and they might want to develop some skills in that area, or well-being and mental health advocacy or campaigning might be important to them. So there might be lots of different reasons why students want to be involved as a wellbeing ambassador. So what we do provide in the program is a recruitment application form, and we call it a profile, so that they can complete the profile and apply. And then as the program goes on over the years, because you get access for 3 years, as the program goes on, previous cohorts of ambassadors can help recruit and interview your next cohort. So they're really involved in selecting the right kind of students and building on the legacy of the work that that first cohort are doing. So that first cohort are just a group of students that you need to get involved to get things up and running and get the ball rolling. What we also recommend is that you start to share with colleagues in SLT the remit of the programme and how it's going to fit into other mental health initiatives that you've got going on in the school, how it fits into work that the senior mental health lead might have been doing, how it fits into like other statutory services or your mental health support team or counselling or COOTH or any of those other interventions that you might have running. This is below that. So these students can signpost in and raise awareness of support and interventions that are active in your school that other students might not even be aware of, or there might be stigma around access. So I was in a school prior to the summer holidays and they had a wellbeing, what did they call it? It was like a pastoral hub or something like that. And the students were like, oh no, we don't go there. Don't go there. Because people know there's something wrong with you if they see you going in there. So I was like, okay, so obviously we have a marketing issue around this centre that's meant to support students. And one of the roles that the ambassadors identified that they could do is promote that service and the benefits of it and reduce stigma, because what was happening is there's a sort of culture of stress and academic success and pressure, and students were struggling but they didn't feel able to ask for help, or they didn't feel they were not, I'm going to say worthy of help. They didn't feel that their issues were strong enough to require help, and they could just get on with it and struggle along on their own. And the staff, there was lots of staff trained in mental health support, there was lots of trained mental health first aiders, that's the words I'm looking for. Yeah, there was lots of a staff team of trained mental health first aiders, trained in youth mental health first aid, and the students didn't know who they were, and there was just lots of miscommunication and like lots of opportunity for quick wins where the ambassadors could share their opinions and like, well, we didn't even know who they were, or we didn't know that they were the same. They were able to do that, and that we could promote them. So also the ambassadors can be visible to other students, so that other students can be like, oh, I can go and have a word with them and ask them, what do I do about this, or who do I go and ask about that? And it's a friendly face that's a step in between a teacher. So one of the things that we definitely cover in the Wellbeing Ambassadors Programme is safeguarding and roles and responsibilities and boundaries, so that the students that are the ambassadors are protected and safe, and that they have someone to go to should they have any worries and concerns from another peer, although that doesn't happen very often from the feedback that I've had from schools. So so the idea is that you learn how to deliver the content yourself, then you recruit your ambassadors. So we're talking maybe up to the first few weeks of term. Then by October half term, or just prior to October half term, you want to be booking in your day to deliver your workshop day to your students. So that, now we do have World Mental Health Day in October, which is the 10th of October. So you can either aim to have it done then or around that time, that's a nice time, or you can, if you get things up and running quickly in September, you could have your ambassadors trained to do some promotion on World Mental Health Day and launch the Wellbeing Ambassadors and the work that they're going to be doing and the impact that they're going to make on World Mental Health Day. Quite often schools aim for that timeline. Usually that's before October half term. Depends on what other stuff you've got going on and how much capacity that you have to lead this project. You do need some time. One of the reasons why the programme can fizzle out is not because it's crap or anything, it's because secondary schools and FE colleges are just so busy, and the people that are involved in this kind of work usually have about 7 different hats, like safeguarding lead, DSL, SEND lead, behaviour manager, pastoral leader for year 10, and so on and so on, and then they're like, oh, you can do this too. So quite often the capacity of time investment is not always considered enough to let the programme impact to the maximum capacity that it should. So you do need to have some time commitment and some time invested in this. But what you've got to bear in mind is the time invested in this programme is going to then reduce workload issues over time as more and more children start to access early intervention within the school, and some of the issues that are taking up a lot of pastoral time get nipped in the bud and de-escalated quicker. So it is a worthwhile time investment. So let's go back to our timeline. So you're trained up, imagine that you're training yourself in September, you're recruiting your students, it takes a couple of weeks, you book your training day, you're doing that around October half term. You come back after October half term and then you start the work. So the work doesn't end with that workshop day, it starts with the end of that workshop day. What we'll be doing is teaching the students a range of coping strategies and coaching them through a range of activities that elicit their voice and talk about the barriers and talk about coping strategies and talk about their role as a positive role model that's going to lead these wellbeing initiatives. By the end of that day, you'll come up with an action plan. Then the first thing you should do is get them all together again and then start to allocate tasks on that action plan. I say to the students sometimes it's a little bit like The Apprentice and you've got different subgroups. It really depends on how many students that you are running the workshop for and how you want it to look like in your school. Some schools focus on more like peer-to-peer mentoring initiatives where they might be having buddies for year 7 transition, or they might be having walk and talk conversations or playground like visible wellbeing ambassadors in the playground that are noticing if year sevens are not settling in, or noticing any issues going on, and like a friendly face to say, hey, did you know that we've got this drop-in club on at lunchtime if you're feeling like you need some help, or you just want to do something fun and you don't feel like this is the right place for you, like just hanging around the playground, things like that. So it really depends on what the students identify as a key priority for them, and then when they're going to put those things in place. So it can end up being one-to-ones, it can end up being pop-up clubs at lunchtime, it can be campaigning, it can be awareness raising events, posters. If you do stuff where you are having a lot of video content, or tutor time, or sort of vertical tutor groups, things like that, the ambassadors can go in and do presentations and share strategies and share tips and things like that. So really, from after you've trained them, I recommend that your ambassadors are being met at least once a half term, ideally once a week to once a fortnight. It really does depend on what their priorities are and what their tasks are going to be. So it can be only like 20 minutes a week or a fortnight, and then you're planning and action planning and putting these strategies in place. I recommend you pick 3 things for that first academic year to do. So on our website, we have lots of different articles and blogs with a lot of more detail of what other schools have done and what that looks like over the 3 years and how the programme has evolved. And I'll share a video at the end of here, which is a case study of one secondary school that's the impact over 3 years. For them, what they ended up doing was actually the ambassadors ended up running exam stress prep workshops, which they developed and created themselves from their own research and their own tools. Some of them were tools that they learned on the Wellbeing Ambassadors Programme, and some of the tools that they got from mental health first aid and other different places. And it was just amazing. So it might be that you think, well, we know that in February, which is Children's Mental Health Week is in February, that we want to do some work with the ambassadors around mental health, stigma, anti-stigma, or awareness raising around strategies, and we want to do that in February because that coincides with Children's Mental Health Week. Or we want to prep for exam stress prior to May around Easter. Coming up to Easter, and we want to do some coping strategies to deal with exam stress, and we want the ambassadors to be involved in that. So we want to be planning that from really November, December, so that you can hit the ground running in January, February. Because if they've only got like half an hour a week or something, time's going to fly by. So then you kind of doing your events, your wellbeing initiatives throughout the academic year. Then come sort of depending on which year groups, which I haven't covered which year groups, really it's different for every school. Some schools focus on just one year group, like year 10 or year 8. Some have a couple of students from each year group, so they get the voice of every year group, and some would just do year 10 to help prepare for year 11, or some will just do year 12 because year 13 are busy doing their A-levels. So it really depends on your school dynamics and what you want the outcomes to be, but there's no right or wrong because the content's flexible. Because you're using a coaching approach and you're asking the students questions, it can work for year 7 as it does work for somebody in a post-16 FE college. The materials are flexible enough to work for all those ages. So say you've started in September, you've trained your ambassadors in October, they've started doing their work from October till January, February. They're having a big thing in February for Children's Mental Health Week, and then it goes into exam time. We're maybe doing some stuff around sharing strategies for exams, and then we need to start thinking about recruiting for year 2 in July and June, July, before the end of term comes around. So then your current students can be thinking about who should the new ambassadors be and helping recruit them, and they're building up all their skills by interviewing them and developing communication skills and all that stuff from being involved. And then your next cohort of students can then support your first cohort of wellbeing ambassadors can then even be involved in training the second cohort of wellbeing ambassadors, depending on if they've left the school or not, or if they want to be involved, and that sort of thing. So really, then it starts to take a life of its own and evolve and develop depending on the students what they identify as the priorities are, if there's any trends that are happening, you know, in society, like toxic masculinity is a big thing at the moment, misogyny, male mental health are particularly hot things, social media, stuff like that. So it depends on what the students want to build and work on. Then in the program we have a bonus top-up session which is much more about coaching skills, so then you can use our bonus materials to then train up the ambassadors with more skills, or you can start from scratch with your new ones and just carry on the process over and over again. But as the program carries on, it will emerge and different issues and different areas for development will arise depending on what the students feel and identify our priorities for them, which in a way is why it's so effective, but in a way makes it hard for me to explain how it looks in your school. But what I find works the best is when the staff involved trust the process and trust the pupil's voice to lead the transformation. It's more effective than if you go into it with an agenda, or like the agenda might be, oh, we want to have peer mentors and we want to do buddying. Quite often peer mentors don't end up working, not because peer mentors are not effective as an intervention, but because secondary schools are so big and they're so fast paced and it's so difficult to match up the right mentors with the right mentees, and that training them and getting them off timetable at the same time at the right time and the places for them to go and the privacy and the confidence, it's just logistically challenging. And as the program's evolved over that's around 8 years we've been doing this for now, the programs that tend to be the most effective are the ones that are more about culture change and reducing stigma and creating cultures of belonging, and in the research around reducing emotionally based school avoidance, and also the way the attendance and attainment initiatives are going, belonging and connection to school are going to become an even more increasing priority. So the best way to know what makes kids want to come to your school is to ask them, and this program helps you do that in a really effective, evidence-based, tried and tested way, where you can chip away at it over time and have it as a sort of initiative as part of your mental health and well-being program of support for students. So hopefully that has helped have some food for thought about how this could potentially fit into your academic calendar. As a member of staff, realistically, I think you need to give yourself, you're going to scoff when I say this, maybe an hour to 2 a week to work on it. Initially, you're going to have to give yourself a couple of days to plan and prep and get it up and running, and then it's constant, it's just maintenance time, meeting the students once a week or once a fortnight and then supporting them to carry out the initiatives and being that person that they can come to should they need support, if they notice something worrying or if they feel concerned about another student, that they need you to be there to support and supervise them so that they can then carry on doing the work of being a representative of wellbeing in your school or setting. So if you have any questions about the Wellbeing Ambassadors Programme, have a look at the website, there's so much stuff on there. Also, download our Wellbeing Ambassadors cheat sheet, which has got tons of information about the programme, how it all works, what the learning outcomes are, and all that stuff. If you're not sure about the impact, we have our impact report, and I also have a webinar, a free webinar, which goes into the theory of why peer-to-peer interventions are effective. So you can have a look at that and just have a look at everything. And then if you really need to chat and you want me to show you what the programme looks like, book a Zoom call with me and I'll gladly show that to you. So hopefully this year is a year where you can take the Wellbeing Ambassadors Programme forward, and look out for more of my videos because we've got some really great stuff coming on the topic of resilience in September and October. So I'll see you again soon.